I read all his books. I would just, I went through all of them, and I just sort of decided for myself, like, I believe in all, you know, I believe in this faith, and I'm gonna start practicing it. So one of the books was just teaching how to do established prayer and the 5 daily prayers, and so you know, I learned it from the books, and I would just read, I mean, I had written the transliteration, and I would just, you know, learn it that way. So it was kind of very personal. I just, you know, since I was young, I would notice that if I were to ever ask God or turn to God for anything, I can't remember a time when I felt like my prayers were not answered. So that kind of was the initial like seed, I think, of faith. But then when I went to, I grew up in a small town in Massachusetts, so we were the only Muslim family there. But then when I went to college, I went to the city in Boston, and so there were so many Muslims that I met. And so then that was kind of like another, yeah, like sort of jumping off point for me to meet other people who believe this thing that I believe so strongly. And so I just sort of got active in college. I started covering when I was 18, after my first year in college, when I met other women who would actually like cover. So I felt encouraged and motivated, you know, that way. But yeah, there's a lot more detail to that.
But it seems like there's always been people in that journey throughout, even though they weren't practicing, for example, there was at least an instilled faith in God, and God who listens to prayer. Yeah. So it seems like there were people along the way. So tell us a little bit about, you know, what kind of people were these kind of people that shaped your life?
Always people, I think. I think without people sort of giving me examples, I would probably view it as more theoretical, you know, and maybe not able to practice it as much. You know, the people who influence me most are just the people I'm around every day. So my parents, everybody, my parents, my siblings, and now my husband, even my kids. And I think, you know, the types of people who really I feel inspired by the most are people who pair their belief with doing good works. And that's not specific to any religion, but I feel it across the spectrum, across all faiths, that there are just some special people who really strive to implement their faith in their reality. And I'm influenced by them all the time. There's one specific individual whom I think about all the time, and he passed last year, but he was a great philanthropist, or a great social worker, one could say, but his name is Abdul Sattar Edi, and it's Edhi, but he's very famous. He was very famous in Pakistan, and he like single-handedly changed the welfare system in Pakistan. He had the largest network of private ambulances. He would have, he started the practice of putting out a baby bassinet in front of their orphanage, and just allowing anyone to sort of drop off their babies. And I think, you know, they've rescued up to 20,000 babies. And he passed last year, but I think about him often. And I think about him, there's a documentary about him, it's called These Birds Walk, I think. Yeah, but when you see him, and I feel like I aspire to be kind of like him. He's a very simple man, but he has done so much for that. You could see like God's hand in his life, and you see him in this video, and he actually bathes children, you know, himself. He's like a man of supreme status, you know, to me, but he's so humble that he still sits with children and he bathes them. He's a more contemporary example, but I think, you know, people who are really able to like take what they know and then implement it, it's very hard, you know. And I think, you know, what he does is very simple, but it's just so widespread and it's grown. And it's this very simple thing, is just like helping
great. You and I share an annoying knack that we like to shower our Facebook pages with kids' pictures. We, and I'm sure some of our friends have stopped following us since then. But,
I hope not.
Tell us a little bit about your family and about how your faith shapes your role as a mother.
Yeah, I hope I'm getting followers through my kids, but I don't know about that.
We can dream.
Everyone's children are very special to them.
That's right.
That's right, natural. But I think it's hard to explain. Like I feel like I live and breathe my belief in God and my faith in almost like every moment. And I don't know if it's sort of taken it also to the extreme on that personal, like spiritual level, but I just, I don't know, really in everything, like when I'm dealing with my children, to think about, how the prophet, peace be upon him, dealt with children in a very gentle manner and kissed children and never speak to them, like never telling them not to do something. It's kind of this positive parenting way of style of thinking. If I feel like my emotions are just gone too far, I'm upset at something, I try to reel it back in. I think about God, I think about, not letting my emotions go too far, being like gentle and just tempered. I think about it like all the time. And even to the level of like apologizing to my kids if I feel like, oh, I've done something, or forgive me, just telling the children to forgive me. Maybe I think like I was having a bad day or this or that. So it kind of shapes the kind of day-to-day interactions with them. And I think one more thing I wanted to say, just about the whole idea of like motherhood in general. I think it's seen as very like holy in the faith, and women are cherished and to be cared for. And I think sometimes I find that in just living here, that it's not cherished in that way. And so I think sometimes we have to be self-critical of ourselves, as pertains to how we deal with our own women and our societies. I kind of felt like there's a lot of, just living the experience of having children and seeing how hard it is physically and emotionally and mentally on women, and then not having certain social programs in place to care for that. Maternity leave, paternity leave, these kinds of things. I think we need to kind of bring back the honor and the sort of the holiness of being a mother, or even both parents, but a mother more so just because it takes such a toll physically.
Yeah, I recently saw that, and just having a new profound. I already respect my wife. My wife, it's sort of. It's a good thing I respect my wife. You should. My wife is a strong, powerful woman. Part of the reason why I fell in love with her. But when she went through pregnancy, that was for me just. We always talked about the strong sex. Yeah, there is a strong sex, and it's not the men.
Yeah.
It's just a profound and to get through.
I think strong in different ways, and one of the verses, like I used to kind of, some verses in the Quran I would always think like, this doesn't really mesh with my cultural understanding, and why is it like this, and I don't understand, and I try to delve deeper to try to come to an understanding of it, and one of them is related to the role of men and women, and one of the verses says that men are the protectors and maintainers of women, and it's meant it in sort of a financial sense or physical sense, and it was kind of, not coming from like, my culture's American, so to kind of understand that, I found it, is this like sexist in a way, is it chauvinistic in a way, like what is this about? And I really felt like, okay, when I went through this whole process of actually having to, like, to be pregnant, to bear the child, I felt like, okay, I'm physically so weak at this moment that this is like what I need. And to think about generations and generations of how women didn't have choice, you know, when it came to having children. And you were just, you know, sort of thrust into this like motherhood, and you really do need someone to take care of you financially, even if it's only for that moment when you're physically incapable. And so I was critical of it until I met a couple women who were not Muslim, and they're just American, and I met them because our babies were born at the same time, so we were in a group together. And one of them was so distraught. Her baby was 2 weeks old, but she was so distraught, and because she said her husband was telling her that she has to get back to work so that she can pay for her own gas money and go around and sort of just to pay her gas, and she felt like she felt like this burden to have to go back to work right away to pay for her own gas because nobody was kind of helping her to get back to that mode that she was in before she had the baby. And so I was like, you know, we have to be sometimes critical of some systems in which we automatically think like the way that we do things is the right way, or we're very progressive, or you know, especially like with gender kind of roles in the United States, we think we're very progressive, but then when you hear like individual stories from people, it doesn't, the picture that is painted isn't so wonderful sometimes. So I think, you know, every situation is different, but to kind of reevaluate sometimes like what we think and how we view things, and that's what it did for me. My own going through that whole situation helped me to reevaluate even my own understanding of the Quran, which I believe, you know. So yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So as Christians, as a Christian who's engaged in conversations with Muslims on a regular basis, everything from big scale interfaith stuff to coffee and wolves, I've noticed that Christians do one or two kind of erroneous things. One is we either marginalize, and there's no more explanation needed. We just demonize Islamophobia. The other one, which tends to happen on